That's fine. Oh, you missed somebody. You got back row there. Yeah. Okay. Got it all, Jeremy? Okay, good. Well, welcome to the third Sunday. Now, for me, the third Sunday equals power. And I've told you before, one of my favorite toys as a kid was a He-Man sword that my grandmother and grandfather got me that my mother absolutely hated. Because when you pressed a button, it said, "I have the power!" and blinked and did all kinds of. It was loud. I'll tell you that. It was really loud. But I really liked that little He-Man sword, and I like the third Sunday because I have all the power. Now I came in today after Sunday school, and Bonnie over here. I said, "How you doing?" She said, "Well, I was okay." And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, aren't you playing?" And I said, "No, I'm singing, but Ann's playing today." Uh, and I said it's mainly because I didn't have a chance to practice this week. I don't want to embarrass myself. The other thing is that uh, I have the power on the third Sunday. I choose worship. I choose what I preach on. Uh, I even choose when you get to eat. Now that's a great deal of power, right? I get to choose when you get to eat every Sunday. But the third Sunday in August, sometimes the fourth, depends on which one, is really my time to shine because I even control how fast you get to eat at Round Lake because I bring the main part of the meal. So until I get there, it really can't start. Um, and I even control the oven at Round Lake. Like nobody else knows how to use that thing really. So I can even choose how fast or slow it cooks and warms the food up. I have all the power on this one day, and I like that. Now, I also have all the power at work. When I go to my other job, and I'm an IT guy, I have all the power. And I explained this to somebody last week, and they wanted to use the company credit card. Now, I am the only one right now in the office with a company credit card. I am it. So, you need something real quick, you've got to be real nice to me. Um, and they needed to use the company credit card. And they started to write down my number. I said, "Oh, no, 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 no. You don't get to write down my credit card number. You got to come to me anytime that you need the credit card." And they said, "Well, what if I copy it down right now?" I said, "Then I'll shut down your computer account and I still win." And they said, "You have all the power." And I said, "You're right. I do have all the power." I said, "I control whether or not you can get to the internet. I control whether or not your phone works. I control whether or not you can spend money. I control whether or not you can even put in an order to keep the shop open." And they said, "I never realized how much power you had." I said, "Scary, isn't it? Scary that that guy with no hair that always wears that goofy grin on his face has all the power." And they said, "That's real scary." And I said, "Think about that for a minute. Now, you have the power when it comes to your elected officials. You vote for them. You have the power over the preacher through your elders. If he doesn't let you eat quick enough, you could go to the elders and say, "I want that preacher spoken to." And they will speak to me and say, "Preacher, get him out there to eat quicker." You have power over your property, whether your car drives into a tree or whether it drives into a parking lot and parks. You have power over those things. Someday you will judge the angels. That's quite a bit of power. I can't even imagine that kind of power. What will you do with all of this power that you have? How do you contain yourselves on a daily basis? How is it you drive a 2 or 3 ton piece of equipment and somebody cuts you off and makes you really angry and you don't just drive right over top of them and teach them a lesson? How is it that you restrain the power that you have? It's scary when you look around at some people. Uh, I taught teenagers last year in high school, and most of them had just gotten their license. And I looked around and I said, they let these kids operate multi-ton pieces of steel at high speeds on these curvy roads. So this is scary. We're continuing on in our values series here. Today we're going to talk about how we value love. And no, I'm not changing halfway through the sermon. This is a Saturday night special in Preacher Speak, which means it was fully prepared last night. It's been thought about for a while, but it wasn't fully written down. It's still not fully written down. How about that? I got about halfway done, and I said to Dee, I'm not writing this thing down. So I'm just going to go off the cuff for most of it. She said, it's your sermon. Do what you want. I have the power. Again. But talking about love, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. The question of the day is, how should we value love? Now, notice that I always have an upbeat sermon on Picnic Sunday. I don't know, keep an eye, but every year I went back through my records, and every year on the whatever Sunday we're having the church picnic, it's always an upbeat sermon. I guess it's because I have to look you guys in the eyes afterwards, and I want to make sure that you have your little smiles on, and you're all happy. I don't know. The same way this year. Let's look at John 13. I'm going to start at verses 1 through 4. It says, Now before the feast of the Passover, Jesus, knowing that his hour had come, that he would depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During the supper, the devil, having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come forth from God and was going back to God, got up from supper, and laid aside his garments, and taking a towel, he girded himself. The end has come. Jesus gets up, and he knows what's about to happen, and he puts his towel around his waist. Jesus is fully aware, it says. He's fully aware that he's God's Son. He's aware that he has come from heaven. He's aware that he's the Lord of all creation. He's aware that only the Father is above him. Jesus at this point is the most powerful being that has existed ever on the planet. And he's fully aware. It says in verse 5, Then he poured water into the basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. So he came to Simon Peter. He said to him, Lord, do you wash my feet? Jesus answered him and said to him, What I do, you do not realize now, but you will understand hereafter. And Peter said to him, Never shall you wash my feet. And Jesus answered him, If I do not wash you, you have no part with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, then wash not only my feet, but also my hands and my head. And Jesus said to him, He who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not all of you. For he knew the one who was betraying him. For this reason he said, Not all of you are clean. Now, you have to understand the social structure that's going on here. Never would a master wash his servants' feet. Never would a teacher wash his students' feet. They wouldn't stoop to that level. I think some people think of Walmart this way. Never would I go into Walmart. Walmart? Have you smelled the people at Walmart? Have you seen the people? I'm not going in there. I go to Buehler's. I know some people like that. I shop at Buehler's. I am not going to Walmart today or ever, provided I can avoid it. The same way with Jesus here. They're looking at him and they're going, why? Why are you you are the most powerful being in all of creation. You are God's only Son, and here you are on your knees with a towel around you with your shirt off, wiping our nasty, dirty feet that we've been walking around all day. We've been to the temple to get this sheep, this lamb that's been prepared. They probably walked through some lamb poo on the way there, in case you're wondering. Why are you doing this? They all miss the object lesson. They're going to learn it. And many, I think, in the church miss the object lesson here. Notice that Peter, Jesus tells him, you can't have a part of me unless I do this to you. And you don't understand now, but you will. Does this mean that you and I can't have a part in the kingdom because we haven't had our feet washed by Jesus? Well, no. But this is an example to them of what is about to happen. Christ is going to become even more humble, and I want you to keep that in your mind. So we go on to verse 12. It says, "So when he had washed their feet and taken his garments and reclined at the table again, he said to them, 'Do you know what I have done to you?'" Now that's a silly question in my mind. Yeah, I know what you did to me. You just washed my feet. Now, some of you have probably been to those churches, the Mennonite churches, that are all about the foot washing. And if somebody came up to you and took off your shoes and started to wash your feet, you'd be like, "No, get away from me." Just the same way Peter did. But imagine that Jesus does this to you and he says to you, "Do you know what I just did to you?" "Yeah, you just washed my nasty feet. I get it." That's pretty gross. Is that what the lesson was here? "You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, the Lord and the teacher, washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I gave you an example that you should do as I did. Truly I say to you, a slave is not greater than his master, nor is one who is sent greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them." Interesting. So Jesus says to them, I'm doing this as an example. What I'm doing right now is to teach you something that is critically important. You have to understand this. Did you get the first part where we read, and he said, if I don't do this to you, you don't have a part in me. If I haven't served you, you can't be in my kingdom. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. You're blessed if you do them. It's one thing to know, it's another thing to do. It's one thing to know how you should treat people, it's another thing to do it. It's one thing to know how much power you have, it's another thing to use it wisely. That's where Jesus is getting at here. So we go on. We skip all the way ahead to 31. It says, therefore, when he had gone out, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him immediately. Little children, I am with you a little while longer. You will seek me, and as I said to the Jews, now I also say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. Jesus is announcing his departure. He says, I'm about to leave you, and I'm about to leave you so that it can become apparent to everybody. You know who I am. You knew that the King of all creation just sat down and washed your feet, and you knew that that shouldn't be. And now it's going to be apparent to the world. You can't follow me right now. It says in 34, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another. What does this mean, this love? How did he love the disciples? What did he do? The next statement is an example of love, and then I want to talk about that for a few minutes. So go on here. By this, all men will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. 36. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, where are you going? Jesus answered, where I go, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow later. 37. We end. 36 is the key. Jesus loved his disciples so much, he didn't sugarcoat it. And I think we miss the message here. This is the same Jesus that sent his disciples out without anything. Said, you'll go and you'll have everything you need. Go. And they did. He gave them authority. He told them, go prepare things, and they did. He taught them everything he knew. And at the end of his life, he doesn't say to them, by the way, I'm going to go, and I'm going to go to the cross, and I'm going to raise again, and then everything's going to be wonderful. No. His immediate statement to Peter is, where I go, you can't follow me now, but you will follow later. Christian history tells us that Peter evidently was crucified upside down on a cross because he didn't feel worthy of being on the same cross that Jesus was on. Jesus told him, "You're going to die for me." Now, how many people today who say, "I love you," in the same statement say, "So I have to tell you what's going on. I love you, so I have to be honest with you. I love you, so I need you to follow me, even though it's going to hurt." That's what he means by loving each other. The disciples were completely honest with one another. They were open. He was honest with them about how things worked in the world. So the question today, what did I say it was at the beginning? How should we value love? Love should not be valued as, "Boy, that preacher's really nice. He tells me everything that I want to hear." Or, "Boy, those elders are really nice. They brought me such and such. Boy, those elders are really nice. Boy, that associate minister is really nice. He organized movie night." Those things are all nice, but they're not true love. True love means that you give of your time, you give of yourself, and you give of truth when it's necessary. It means you're honest to the point that it hurts. Next week, I'm going to put a survey in your boxes, if you have a box. If not, I'll put some on the back table. You can fill one out too. And I'm calling it the Brutally Honest Survey. And if you were at the evangelism thing, you'll know what I'm talking about. But most surveys now have forms, you fill in the little bubbles, and "I hate this, I like this is wonderful, this isn't." It's not going to be like that. It's going to be 3 questions. What is the church doing right, in your opinion? What is the church doing wrong, in your opinion? And what should we be doing different? 3 questions. But in love, I want you to be brutally honest with those questions and say, "You know what? I hate it when we have piano-only worship. I hate it when Kent doesn't play guitar. I hate it when Kent plays guitar. I hate it that the bongo drums are back there and we paid $200 for them and they're not out. Kent, I want you to bring them out and I want you to play the bongo drums 1 song a week." Whatever it is, I want you to be brutally honest with it. "I don't like the communion juice. The communion bread is horrible." I want you to be open, because ultimately I want to transform this church into a place where you say, "I love coming to church every Sunday because the people are there that I love. They listen to me and they tell me the truth about where I am in my life." And I want you to be proud, and we do everything excellently in this church. So next week, look in your boxes. There will be a survey. Brutally honest. I'm not going to, examine the handwriting and try and figure out, who said the preacher doesn't wear the tie? Well, that looks like Ann's handwriting. Gotcha. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take those sermons. I'm going to collect them. We're going to share them at the elders meeting with the elders. We're going to say, these are the things that people would like to see done differently in the church. What among this is biblical? What's unbiblical that we shouldn't be doing? And what is within that gray area that we need to talk to the church and say, "Listen, this is how people feel. What do we want to do as a church?" Because ultimately, this church isn't about me. This church isn't about the elders. This church is about you and you following Jesus Christ and being willing to come here and bring other people and being excited to share your faith with people. And part of that starts with what we're doing here. So, how do we value love? We value love in its honesty, in its sincerity, and in its brevity. Brevity means that it's short. It's okay to be short in this survey. "I hate the color red." I don't care. Whatever you want to put down, it's up to you. So, as we go from here, we're going to Round Lake. Well, some of us are. Not all of us. I'm not going to be unrealistic. We're going to Round Lake. And we're going to go there and we're going to have a meal together. And when we're done with that meal, We're going to fellowship, by golly. And you're going to have a good time. Why? Because the preacher said so. And I have the power. And if you don't have a good time, I will make up some kind of silly youth group game and make Jeremy lead it. So come on out. Have a good time. If it rains, you can still swim. The water's still wet, just like the rain, as long as it's not lightning. If it doesn't rain, you can swim, you can fish, you can do whatever you want. But I want to make sure that you're out there, and I want you to say hi to every person that's there. Now, I think we do a good job of that. But I want you to count to yourself when you get there how many people are there and make sure that you say hi to every one of them and try and have at least a 3-sentence dialogue. Now, that should be easy. That's the easiest requirement I can give you, because every one of you should have that on Sunday. Hi, how are you? I'm okay. How are you? Good. That's 4 right there. That's 4 sentences. Good. By golly, we did our fellowship requirement this week. I hope it turns into more. But if nothing else, at least you know everybody in that room. And the next time that you say hi to them, hopefully you can come up with something. Gee, I like your beard. Gee, Kent, your shirt's really red today, as Edith would say. Gee, Kent, you smell funny. That's fine. What's that about? Shower night didn't happen last night. I don't know. Something. Go brush your teeth. Be honest. Be open with each other. Don't be mean. But have honest conversation, not this fluffy, how are you? I'm good. Never mind the fact that I just got diagnosed with cancer. Will you pray with me? Father, we come before you and we just thank you that the church is a place where we can be honest and open, where we can love one another without fear, Father. I pray that as we come to you this morning, that the things that we do, the things that we say, the way that we act would be in Christian love. They would be honest and genuine in seeking you. Father, I pray this morning that those who aren't with us, that they would feel the love when they return. In Jesus' name, amen. The thing that originally brought me to the church was love. It was merely the fact that even though I was that goofy, backwards, geeky kid, the people in the youth group genuinely accepted me for who I was. The fact that they were willing to accept me, the fact that the people in the church talked to me like a human being, really impacted me. And I hope that we're doing that as a church. Ultimately, when I came forward to be baptized, the youth minister said something that was very interesting to me. Well, I guess now you've got some work to do. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we're not just going to let you sit in the pew every Sunday. I said, what? And they had me, just like we had Tommy back here on the first day, first time he's been back doing communion and offering, they had me doing that right from the get-go. And that said something important to me, that you know what, church isn't just about sitting back there, and I like the fact that none of you sit in the splash zone. That really cracks me up. Just so you know, I am getting ready to remove the back pews, just to really annoy the snot out of some of you, and make you move forward. Church is more than sitting in the pews. It's about going and doing. And some of you can only pray, that's fine. Some of you can only give, that's fine. Some of you can only talk. Some of you can't even talk, that's fine. But do something for heaven's sake. And it starts with the first step of coming up here and being baptized. If you've done that, then the next statement applies to you. Hopefully you belong to a church somewhere and you're serving in that church. Membership, you're welcome to place it if you're a baptized believer in Christ. Membership means that this preacher is going to come up to you and say, hey, Jimmy Bob, there's some weeds out in that flower bed over there, and I see that you're under the age of 70, and that you haven't had 2 knee replacements and 2 shoulder replacements. Mind pulling a couple weeds for me? Thanks. And it's not a power trip. It's just that things need to get done in the church. Now, while we sing, you're welcome to come forward. We're going to sing an Easter hymn. Why? Because I have the power. And I like the song. So, stand up. We're going to sing one.